taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
What's up? Welcome everybody to the Augmented Reality podcast for March 1st, 2019, 2 months into the year already. And this is the Friday edition of the show. My name is Asheninity, and I'm here as always with Cybsidian. This is your source for leaks, news, and insights about games and the gaming industry. And it's been a week for leaks, hasn't it? And well, leaks. Again, we debated about the definition of a leak a little bit last time, but lots of cool info. E3 2019, Cyberpunk 2077 has been confirmed that it'll be there by CD Projekt Red. They confirmed that on Twitter this week.
It's almost as if we called it, 2 weeks ago, and then announced that more stuff was coming right away.
I meant to tell you before the podcast, not to gloat about that, but I guess I forgot. Shame on me. But yeah, so that's really cool. We teased it on Tuesday in the last podcast. Cyb, in his typical Cyb fashion, talked about it without revealing too much of the information that he has. So
we also this goes back to the Valentine's Day thing too. Is like we pointed out on Valentine's Day that their next big announcement was going to come on the Sunday right before E3 starts, and then they've confirmed that they're going to be at E3. And they've also, this hasn't made it to the news yet, but I'll give you this. They're also confirmed for the E3 Microsoft stage.
Fantastic. And that's on that is on June 9th. That is on June 9th.
That is on June 9th. So what and you haven't heard that yet because it's still being planned out, like I kind of alluded to on Tuesday. So I'm dropping a little bit more info on that. Do you want me to do that now, or you want to?
I'll just finish the intro first, and then we'll dive into that. But yeah, the tease for that is at time code 3834 in Tuesday's podcast. If anyone's interested, but just listen today, and you'll get all the good info there. We went and saw Alita: Battle Angel last night. We're going to give you a spoiler-free review on that. That's a surprisingly hard thing to say. Spoiler-free review. So, yeah, we're going to give you our thoughts on that, talk about a little bit about how it's doing in the box office and whether or not it'll get a sequel, that kind of a thing. And then we've got, of course, more info about The Outer Worlds. Another interesting interview with the CEO of Obsidian was released.
A very good one, too.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was a very interesting watch. So, if you're listening live today, please say hello in the live chat, as many of you already have. Bluntman, Velo, the Alpha DK, welcome. 20 the Blade, Angelo T, Katriox, Minty66, who's refusing to share those pretzel M&Ms, for shame. Whisper803, Mr. French86, Notional, Dancing on the Ashes, Greek Strawberry, so many familiar names, Max Mouse, Sword Sister, and Blunt Man. Welcome, everybody, and to everyone else who either hasn't jumped in the chat yet or is lurking in the background, we welcome you here as well. Thank you so much, and we'll just jump right into this Cyberpunk E3 info. Take it away, Cyb.
All right, so the little hint that I was trying to drop last week on Tuesday was that they're for sure going to be at E3, but what exactly they're going to be bringing to E3? We know that they're going to be at the Microsoft stage, and that they're going to be doing a cool intro. If you remember last year, the intro to the actual trailer was amazing, right? And it was a showstopper, quite literally. This time they're going to be doing something a little bit similar, but its placement's going to be probably different.
I doubt they're not gonna do the same trick they did last year.
Well,
people are going to be expecting it this year, for one thing. Well,
and that's the thing. So I'll say this because this is up in the air, and I need to make this really clear. They're toying with the idea of doing what they did, like cutting into the feed, but instead of doing it at the end of the show, they might be doing it right at the beginning of the show. So they'll be the first people up on the stage, essentially. They're going to break in like they did last year, going to play a brand new trailer, and then you're actually going to have people from the studio come out, probably the head honchos, come out and directly talk with probably one of the higher ups right from Microsoft as well.
See, I'm debating whether or not I like that approach or not. Because on one hand, it's kind of a trademark cyberpunky thing to do. On the other hand, I'm like, it's the same thing you did last year. You know, maybe come up with something original. But it will be a new trailer regardless, so that's fantastic.
I think it would be hilarious if it cuts in, because then you could do something that's really cool. You could actually take last year's show, put it into a video, butt up against this year's show, and have it flow from one show to the next show, and it legitimately like ties 2 years of a stage show together. That's pretty cool. That's never been done before.
Huh, interesting.
So that's part of what's going on. That's part of the ideas that I've heard are being thrown around. So whether or not that comes to fruition, I can't emphasize that. I mean, this is really early on. They've always had a really, really strong, clear, and present concept of what they're doing and how they're doing it. This has always been, long time in the making. They've been prepared to do this stuff for years now. They have been, like, we started getting hints of their plan for their announcement and for their media campaign like over a year ago now. We were getting like strong info that was being leading us down some very interesting roads, and we've been hearing a lot of this kind of stuff that they've been doing. So this will be really interesting to see how this pulls out and how this ends up being presented as far as the next showcase goes. More on this. What we have is it's strongly rumored right now that they're going to have a large stage presence on the actual show floor. Stage presence isn't the right wording.
But like a
floor
large
size.
Yeah, okay. A large booth area kind of thing.
Yeah, a large booth area seems to be what they're setting up. Now again, this is really early on. They are working with Microsoft a little bit. So they could technically take up some of their space. They are working with, they're going to be releasing on Sony, so they could also have a presence there. Now Sony's not actually at the show, but there's going to be some stuff from Sony at the show this year. It's not like they've completely cut off and absolutely no games that are involved with Sony will be there, because it's not, it's obviously not how it works. But it will be a small thing for that.
They're just not doing a big presser kind of a thing.
Yeah, and we might see the same thing. There's so much up in the air right now with E3 in general. Last year, Microsoft was entirely off-site at hosting their own thing across the road from the convention center where this was all going on. So part of they might be over there. They might be actually on the show floor at E3. E3 is suffering from they're suffering from a lot of problems both internally and externally. Last year they received very, very, very negative press amongst how it was organized, how they communicated with a lot of the attendees, how they communicated with the fans that showed up, how they communicated with some of the journalists. We had that problem. There were a lot of very, very poorly done things that set them up for significant failure in a lot of ways. So this is something to kind of keep in mind as we go into E3. There's a lot of stuff that's up in the air. But from what we're putting together right now, it does appear as if Cyberpunk CDPR will be at the show. They'll be on the floor with some kind of a place where people can go directly and check this stuff out. Last year, they were in 2 small-ish rooms, doing a very private showing to press. This year, they're expected to be actually on the actual show floor, and they will be showing up with a significant amount of floor space. Significant amount of floor space typically means playable content. By the by the people attending the show. So this is huge. If this is true, then at the moment what we're rumored to be getting is an actual demo at E3 that'll be playable for certain people that are there. This would be a huge showstopper, and would also kind of line in with the way that a lot of marketing is done in the way that they handle this kind of stuff. And it for sure lines up with a few things that we've been hearing for well over a year now. So don't get your hopes up too much. I wouldn't necessarily try to like unless you live locally to E3, I wouldn't necessarily try to like sign up to get in to the show, because it's brutal going there, generally speaking. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. But being able to like get your hands on it and play it a little bit, or to to see, obviously there's going to be a new trailer, and there's going to be a ton more information and stuff about the game. We still have it on somewhat good authority that's when they're planning on kicking off their big campaign. And if it's releasing in the fall, then we're going to have 5 months of straight advertising. So that's very, very possible as well. So it really depends where that kickoff starts. If it starts before, if you remember back to, a bit of the campaign for Fallout 4 started before that E3 that they were at. So there's all kinds of stuff that they're close to, working on and perfecting. So so it's something that really you have to be pretty careful where you're at and what you're looking for and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be really interesting. It'll be really, really, really interesting. I'm stoked to see this. I'm stoked to see how this is going to play out. The information that we're getting is really early on. Take it with a grain of salt, with the exception of they're going to be at E3, and they're going to have a much larger presence than they had in previous years. Mm-hmm. That is subject to change due to the issues that is happening with E3 in and of itself. It's probably going to go through. It's probably going to be fine. There's not many other massive conventions that it's basically the Comic-Con of the games industry.
Right.
And like I said, I think we talked about this. I know we talked about this in the Discord a year ago, but we did have a lot of conversation with some people who were pretty involved with E3, like having going there, being there, being an actual attendee there. And what we hear from a lot of people like that is the same thing. E3 is a mess. It's not only is it a mess, it's a political nightmare of hot garbage as well. Like, you have to know the right kind of people in the right kind of positions. There's lots of favoritism that's being pulled, people doing certain things for out and out bribes, that kind of thing. It's a mess. It's not welcoming to indie studios. It's not welcoming to indie press. It's not welcoming to the actual gamers who show up and who actually pay money to get inside. You're always shoved into these lines where it's like the line, they take your money for you to go to the show, but then they don't actually treat you like you're actually at the show. They treat you like it's a privilege for you to be, the select few gamers that are allowed, quote unquote, to be there at that particular time. And it's disgusting. The way that they treat the community, the way that they treat the gamers, the way that they treat the developers. They fawn over the big the big development companies, and at the same time, it's just gross. It's just gross. There's a lot of problems with E3, generally speaking. I think pretty much the entire board that runs that thing should be removed and replaced with people who are actually competent. But overall, it's basically like, this is not new in the world of trade shows. In the world of trade shows, this is actually pretty common. Whether it's, you know, an RV trade show or, you know, a kitchen, you know, barbecue or just a general like trade show, you have this stuff happen all the time.
Yeah.
The people who run these events, who host these events at the convention centers, this is just their bread and butter. Like, it's just what happens. So yeah, it bleeds into other aspects of the show, and it creates a lot of, you know, really disheartening messes of stuff. And I don't want to get too much into it, but yes, E3 is having problems. They're having a lot of negativity. However, they are still the biggest show. And there are shows that are getting closer and closer to upstaging them. PAX East, happening very soon, is really becoming a new spot where people can announce games. It's a little bit early in the year. I don't expect them to take over the position completely. They could. It's not impossible, but being that it's not in the summer, it is a little bit harder. It's also during a period of crunch time, too. However, with its relatively proximity to the GCD, there's a couple things that make it more appealing for some developers. We're going to have some game announcements at PAX East. Borderlands is heavily speculated to be one of them. We have pretty much confirmation at this point that it's going that Borderlands something is going to be announced at PAX East in a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
That's again, you know, that's a rumor. It's heavily rumored. We're seeing general nods to it. We have some info that you know, I've been told by about 4 people that I really trust that's going to be the announcement, but some of that could be wishful thinking by about 2 of those, and then the other 2 could be also misdirection, because I mean, Borderlands announcements have been, you know, it was supposed to come out like, you know, 6 months ago. It was supposed to be at the last E3, and they pulled out at the last minute. So again, it's like yeah. You're saying that you're going to be there, but you've also said the same thing 3 other times, and you've pulled out at the last possible second. So I'm not exactly willing to take them at face value, because they said the exact same thing at their, you know, supposed 3 other announcement dates. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So don't be shocked. We're going to be listening for it, but at the same time, it's like don't be surprised if there's this, especially with the legal problems that are going on with the studio right now. There could very well be yet another stoppage for some unknown, completely insane reason.
Still, seems about time that we got some Borderlands 3 info, and we're definitely looking forward to that one as well. I'm looking forward to that one. I have just finished up Metro Exodus and really enjoyed that one thoroughly. It and the way they kept true to the original games, and also took it in a new direction that really added to it, in my opinion. And if they do the same thing with Borderlands 3, I'm really stoked for that. You know, to keep true to the original, but then just take it in, make it larger, take it in new directions. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with Borderlands 3. But anyway, we have confirmation that CD Projekt Red will be at E3 2019. We weren't surprised, but it's good to have confirmation of that. So that's fantastic.
And like I said, there's a bunch of things that are in the works right now for Cyberpunk for this year. There's a ton of stuff that's planned out. It's going to start happening. We don't know exactly when, but it eventually will start to kick into high gear. Exactly when and exactly how, we don't know for sure, because of all of the related problems with trying to like call this stuff in advance, because they're fluid. They're still very, very fluid. You know, sometimes they get a really good question by a particular person on Twitter or somewhere, and out of the blue, they have a list of things that they can talk about or that they're willing to drop at certain points. Again, this is like a drip, drip, drip of information. Basically every 2 weeks, they've had a significant piece of information drop. Sometimes it's more than two, maybe it's once per week or something like that. And that's been the way that they've been kind of setting that in motion and keeping the game in the news cycle. You don't keep a game in the news cycle if you're not planning on dropping something soon. But soon for them could mean anywhere between now and like 2 months from now. So,
absolutely.
That's more or less where we're standing. And I have apparently some big machinery outside. So if you hear anything in the background,
that's okay. You could have just blamed that on your motherboard or something. But anyway, so you are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast. Don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. We really appreciate it if you take a moment to do that right now. And we also encourage you to join our Discord server. If you haven't already, you can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. So lots of good contents here. We got the Neon Arcade showing up again. Good to see you. Notional is trolling people about the Cyberpunk release date again, and also talking about how he's looking forward to playing Metro Exodus in a year when it comes out on Steam. And I have to think that decision,
that's pretty common.
Yeah, the decision to make it an Epic exclusive is
it's probably
really hurt the game. Which is unfortunate. It's a really solid game. I've already sort of given my review, and my opinion on it hasn't changed. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the more open environments when I got to that part. They were some pretty big. There's like three chapters in the game where they put you in big open-ended environments. So not like Fallout 4 big, but it's open. You can travel anywhere, explore things, find things. There's side quests to do, all of that. Really enjoyed that part of the game. The only thing that I've really been dissatisfied about Metro Exodus was that I found the ending a little anticlimactic. Still well worth playing the game. Like, didn't ruin the game for me or anything at all, but I just wish that the ending had more impact. It just kind of felt like you got to the end of this level and then it was done. So, and then there's the ending cutscene and stuff. That's my only real complaint about the game, though. It had so much heart, and like the driving motivation behind the game is sort of this relationship between Artyom and his wife. And I won't spoil anything, but that relationship is the driving force behind the game, in my opinion, as well as the whole thing about just creating a future and the survival of the human race. And the story it takes so many twists and turns but there's a few points where I was like, that's a little thin, but overall really, really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed the game. Really, really enjoyed the story. And it just the characters just grabbed me in a way that made me want to keep playing. So they did a really good job with that. Wasn't intending to give sort of a review of that here, but there you go. There you have it, since it came up in the chat. But yeah, as Notional says here, going from one exclusive to another is not competition. I'm afraid the sales really hurt from that exclusivity. That is very potentially true, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But hopefully it's going to be maybe it'll be a sleeper hit. Like, maybe it'll be something that people can constantly pick up over the next few years and have a good time with.
Yeah, I mean, they have a chance to do basically a second release once it hits Steam, because then they can bundle it with some expansion and patches that they throw in, maybe, or some DLC, I don't know. But overall, it hurt them bad. And it hurt them really bad because because it was an unproven platform that required its dependence on a single game, Fortnite, which is not the same audience that you're going to have playing Metro Exodus. There's a lot of significant differences there. The person who thought this, like I said, they had better have secured, every last penny that they were expecting to make on Steam times 2. So if they thought they were going to move, 2 million units on Steam, then they should have said to Epic, okay, I need you guys up front, you're going to pay for what essentially would have been, 2 releases. Mm-hmm. Double the release we were expecting to get on Steam in cash up front. And then we're going to get like 50% of we're going to make, not 50. You're only going to take like, the smaller percentage that you take, but we're also going to get a bonus for so if we end up selling like 3 million units on your system, then you're basically going to give us all of the money that those things sold. And really set up like a really good deal for them. And I fear they didn't do that. I fear that they basically took, I don't know. We won't know for a few more months now until how this plays out. But like seriously, if they didn't lock down a massive, cash check in advance, then, well, I don't know. It's not a good sign. It's really not a good sign.
I imagine there must have been a significant financial incentive for them to agree to that, because I imagine they knew it would be a controversial decision. Like it's
no, well that's what happens in the industry of analysts and advisors. There's a very good chance that they were said, oh yeah, Steam's on the way out. Epic is on the way in. There's 40 billion people playing Fortnite. They're all gonna buy your game, and it's gonna be amazing.
Yep.
And I know people in the industry who could sell that to somebody.
Interesting.
And for them to like a snake oil salesman, just get them to just dish their entire future on a hunch because they think it's the right thing to do, or because they get talked into the fact that they're going to make so much money, that they get no guarantees, that they're told that getting guarantees would not be a good thing. That look, this is your only chance to get in, to become a preferred client, quote unquote, now, and that, you can sell anybody anything. Like that whole, like, there's that old saying, I got a bill of goods I can sell you. What that is that's a bill. You're selling somebody, hey, I'm going to sell you this. It's going to cost you $5,000. What is it? Oh, well, this is a bill for $10,000. But I'm giving it to you at such a good deal. But if I buy this for $5,000, then I'm going to owe $10,000. Yeah. It's not a joke. People fall for this stuff. That's why there's a saying around it. Not everybody, but there are people out there who are dumb enough to buy into this stuff, or there are people out there who are skilled enough to be able to sell this. And I hope, I don't know. I just hope that they were not that dumb, that they didn't walk into this thing with no guarantees, with no sales predictions, anything. I suspect what I've heard is that they made a lot of money from Epic. Epic gave them an enormous amount of money straight up, because Epic wants to invest in the storefront. They want to make deals happen. And the fact that the Division is doing the exact same thing, I think pretty strongly that there's, like, Division's not Ubisoft isn't stupid. So I suspect that for sure that they got a check for some amount. I just hope it was enough.
Right. I hope so too, because it was a good game. I want to see this studio make more games, and I want to see this game get some DLC and hopefully a new game plus mode. That would be fantastic, because I want to play it again. Like, but I want it to be different, right? I don't want to just do the same thing again. So that's the other unfortunate thing is like that. It's not an RPG, so it's not like you can go through with a different play style. You know, you could try being more aggressive in combat, take things head on rather than go for stealth, which was typically what I would do. But there's also multiple endings depending on how you play. If you're a complete jerk and asshole to everybody, then you get the bad ending. And I'm kind of curious to see what that is. But, you know, I'd like to see more variety. I'd like to see a new Game Plus mode. I would also like to... I hope they make some DLC or something. Some kind of expansion for it. I would eat that up.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to generally a positive...
Mm-hmm. Sorry about the background noise, by the way. Somebody is plowing snow outside the compound where Cyb's disembodied brain is attached to coolant systems and processors.
Yeah,
so
it's
unfortunately, we can't filter that out. But,
it was supposed to be done like 4 hours ago, so this is really, really, really annoying. And apologies heavily for the re-recording, because this is really gonna be prevalent on the audio podcast. So sorry about that.
Yep.
Wish I could change it.
Bluntman was asking, why does everyone keep saying that the game will be in at least 2020? I think if you're talking about Cyberpunk, which I think is the game you're talking about, there are multiple reasons for that. Some people just don't think there's any way it'll be done in 2019. And then some people think that they're going to push it to 2020 just because that'll line up with the original pen and paper game, which was Cyberpunk 2020. Now, we've kind of debunked that idea in the past because that would be an incredibly poor decision to make business-wise for them. If the game was ready in 2019 and they pushed it to 2020 just as kind of a marketing thing, or just to sort of give a hat tip to the fans of the tabletop game, would not be a good business decision.
So let's run this through pretty quickly. The total amount of people who are expecting this to be released in 2020 because of the whole 2020 original thing is an incredibly small amount of the potential players of this game. We're talking like less than 2%. So it would be like having a special event or having a special release schedule for a particular music album that you enjoyed when you were a kid that nobody's heard of today. It's not that the original tabletop was not popular. It's that's just not in the mind of the majority of gamers out there. The gamers today who are the potential audience for this game, the vast majority of them haven't even played any pen and paper game ever. Like maybe 5 to 10% tops. Of those people that played the Cyberpunk pen and paper, next to, like, we're talking like, you know, potential of like 10 million players potentially buying this game. Out of that, maybe like 500,000 have played the original pen and paper Cyberpunk. Of that, less than half of that are dedicated fans. And of that dedicated fans, less than half of that are people who have played it in the last 10 years. That's how the number system rolls out. So there's a lot of people who think they're smart who's saying, oh no, it's going to come out in 2020 because that's the reason. No, if it comes out in 2020, the primary reason for that is because that's when it was ready.
Yeah, exactly.
The studio doesn't make decisions like this based off of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not something that they would typically do. It's just not it doesn't make sense for them. Now, if they were going to, and again, I've said there's only about if you follow our Discord, I've said in the Discord that it being released is about a 60%, 65% chance for this year. It leaves a considerable amount of percentage for next year. So I want to make that clear. It's a target date, and target dates are targets. You can hit them or not. Their best release date right now is this fall. Financially, as far as economics goes, as far as more or less the best time to release a product. If you release it in, in 2020, you have a lot of issues that could be happening then. And like part of the analyst stuff is the amount of information that we look at. So if you're going to say how much disposable income is out there and how much disposable income will people have in 2019 versus 2020. Right now in 2019, we know that people will have a large amount of disposable income. We know that things overall are doing really, really well. Financially, as far as Europe goes, the States goes, China, Japan, South Korea, all of the big gaming capitals, South America. For the most part, if you're going to release this game, this year is a great time to release it. The chances of as many people being able to buy this as humanly possible is extremely high. If you released it next year, the chances of people having that level of disposable income drops significantly.
Interesting. So what would you say to the people who say there's no way it can be done this year? Like, that just isn't possible from a development standpoint.
Well, I'll get to that. So okay. Let me just finish with the financial thing. Next year there's a ton of elections going on. This fall is when a lot of these elections are starting to kick up. Things in Europe start to get a little bit more shaky from a financial perspective. Once you hit 2020, things are going to get a little bit more shaky. If everything pans out positively, then yes, technically next year is a higher likelihood of you being able to move more products. However, it's not that high. The chances of 2020 being a bad year overall financially is a lot higher than this year. This year, you know that things are good. Next year, things could be a little bit better, or they could be a lot worse. And trying to sell your game in the middle of a massive economic downturn, where you have tens of thousands of people who want to play your game, who have been forced to move out of their place or to pawn their console or something like that, the chance of that is actually relatively high. So we have hello, Maria. To answer your question as far as how this works in Europe, if you really want to know, hop in the Discord and I'll tell you later. But right now it's like there's a potential for it to go up and to get better, of course. And I'm not downplaying that. There's a potential for it to get really, really positive. However, there's also an overall net danger of them losing considerably, and this is what you really have to worry about this. From a marketing standpoint, you can't always just look on the positive side of things and say, "Oh yeah, we're guaranteed to make this amount of money." Blah blah blah. It's like you always have to plan for a rainy day. If you're a good market analyst, or if you're a good analyst in general, you always have to know that things can get really bad really fast. And good analysts were able to predict this in the last economic downturn. There were a lot of people who were saying, "Hey, look, this is really dangerous. We're treading on thin ice." There were a lot of people who were saying that. Not a lot in general, just a lot, number wise. There was like several financial experts who were warning people, saying, "We need to slow down. This needs to be checked. We're heading towards a brick wall." And what happened? Nobody listened, and those people actually made a lot of money because they were able to say, "Hey, look, you have to be careful," and and they took certain precautions, and people who listened to them took certain precautions, and then everybody else suffered massively when the last downturn hit. So that's all I'm saying is those kinds of things heavily influence the gaming market. And again, if you have a financial analyst who's on your team who's telling you when is a good time to release your product, you're being suggested, hey, you want to release it in 2019. 2020 you can release it, but if we do that, then we're gonna have to go for a spring release, and if the spring release doesn't do that well, then we're gonna be missing out on a massive amount of money. So now that's covering kind of like the boring side of the analytics, where you're looking at, you know, all relevant information. Now let's look at more of the programming side of things. The programming side of things is a little bit different than some people realize. People were told, yes, they went back and they rebooted the production cycle. And everybody thinks that, oh, so they lost all of the work that they've done since they started working on it like 7 years ago. Not true. Flat out not true. They started recording audio from some of the actors, 5 years ago. So there's a lot of people. I spoke with one person last week who said, look, it can't come out in 2019 because they don't even have enough time to finish the audio recording. I said, where do you get this? This is, well, they only started audio recording like 2 years ago when they finished up The Witcher. I said, no. They started that stuff well before The Witcher was finished. They started a lot of the small stuff. They rebooted the engine. They didn't reboot the entirety of the game. There were a lot of weapon assets. There was a lot of vehicle assets. There was a lot of generalized interaction coding that they had done, because a lot of that coding didn't change between the engines. The engine, it's still the same engine. And even when you upgrade the engine, it was mostly a graphical upgrade. There was some AI upgrade that they've been working on, and they're still working on that now. Their shooting AI is something that they've been working on for a long time. A lot of that side of the programming that has been worked on since they started this thing. And yes, they've retooled a lot of it, but it's that ability to constantly improve and to make it more optimized. That's the important thing that you have to remember, is that just because they rebooted one aspect of the game doesn't mean that they went back to square one and did everything from scratch. And a lot of the programming when it comes to games comes down to a lot of the scripting and the coding that you don't see. It's not just the visuals, and it's not just the sound files. A lot of people think that's all there is to a game, and that's not true. Most of what there is to a game is the coding side of things that you don't see, that you never really, delve into at all.
Right.
And it's the coding and the scripting that's the biggest cost and the biggest draw on the thing has to offer. And this is what you have to this is what you really have to focus on, because the danger that you run into of saying, oh, no, it's fine, blah blah blah, we can ignore that, etc. It's just a bad it's dangerous. We'll say that. So the as far as the development side of things goes, they're a lot further along than a lot of people think they are. And it's, for the most part, it's not as complex as a lot of people are thinking as far as how far along they are. Some people think that they're not nearly as far along, that they've only been working on it since they finished up Blood and Wine, and that's it. And that's not true. They've been working on it for years before then.
Mm-hmm. All the previs stuff, all the, there's a whole ton that happens before you even sit down and start coding. The story,
the writing, like they sat down with Mike and they started to plan. Now things have changed. Yes, there's a lot of things that have changed. We might not get multiplayer at release. This is becoming more and more of a possibility. And even though they came out and said this game will have multiplayer at release, might not be true. Might be running in limitations. So there's a lot of issues.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. Where exactly they are in development, well, we can look at what they did for the demo, and we can look at that and we can say, look, multiple games have showed off that level of kind of a polished demo, and turns out they were like 18 months away from release, or that they were about 24 months away from release. At the current state, most developers who really know studios, who really know video games, they looked at the demo last year and they said, yeah, it looks like they've got probably about 18 months left. And what is 18 months from the time they showed that trailer? That's this November.
Mm-hmm.
So again, things can change. And that's why I'm saying 65% chance that it's coming out this year. There is still that, it's almost a third of a chance that it'll get pushed to next year. And that's dependent on a whole bunch of minor issues that we may or may not be able to like quantify perfectly. But just generally, keep your heads up. This is possible. This is probable. Bear that in mind while we're looking at this.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. All right, we should move on here. But Kim asked a really interesting question in chat, Kim Bergstrom, about why publishers or developers strip a product down to the minimum viable product. I would love to discuss that question. We will get to it if we have time here, but that sounds like it's going to be sounds like a big topic that we probably, unless you think you can summarize in like 2 to 3 minutes, Saib.
I'm trying to find the
basically the question is, using Anthem as an example, why do they, the Anthem game that they showed at the E3 reveal, and then the Anthem that we got at release was very different, and it seems like the Anthem we got was the minimum viable product. In other words, like it had everything that they could sacrifice. Everything they could sacrifice was stripped off the game, and they just put out the bare bones, the bare minimum of what they could. So the question is, why do publishers do that?
That problem in particular, I'll go into this because Anthem is a different case than some of the other products that you have out there. So let's look at Anthem directly. Last week I was kind of peeved about Anthem. Started to ask a lot of questions. I've now heard back from again. We've said this numerous times. We have a lot of connections at BioWare. We don't do as many BioWare leaks as we do in other things. It's because they know who I am. So, and my name's on an NDA. So I can't do as many leaks when it comes to BioWare related content. By the way, there's tons of cool stuff I wish I could tell you about the next Dragon Age game and what they're doing with Mass Effect. I really wish I could mention that, but I can't. So let's look at Anthem. Why did we have certain content in the game that was in the trailer? Like, there was a whole quest, there was NPCs, there was a bunch of things within the fort. Why was that not in what we have now? And the best answer that I have for you, as far as that goes, is that technically the engine was not capable of hosting it. It all comes down to that damn engine that they're using. It's just a pile of crap. It cannot handle this stuff. It was never designed and created from the ground up to be an RPG engine. And it's really terrible at being an RPG engine. And that when it comes to the, the gameplay in Anthem is pretty, I mean, it was a little buggy in the first week, but it's getting better. They've added some patches in, and they're fixing the items and the weapons and the masterwork gear and stuff like that. A little too late, I think, but the combat's fine. It's when you're in a small area talking to NPCs that the engine just falls apart because it was never designed for that.
So if the engine's not capable of handling that stuff, why did we see it in the trailer? Like, why?
Because that trailer was scripted, right? So it was like designed.
But was it just completely not authentic in-game stuff, or is it that they then added too much and it just didn't work when everything was mixed together?
It's authentic. It's just it was running on a beast of a computer that the consoles can't emulate.
Oh, okay.
That was running off of one of their one of their Power Horse dev computers. this thing's got like 180 gigs of RAM. It's got like, it's got 5 graphics cards, and I'm exaggerating, obviously.
Right, yeah.
But
right.
it's not a small thing. It's like, not only that is that it's not all just cut and dry. It's like they edit that stuff together. So, it could have taken them 5 or 6 takes on it. Now, you could say the same for CDPR, but in this case, it's that wouldn't be true. Yes, it's running on a horsepower machine. But the cuts in it are more streamlined, and they're not stapled together. All of the events that you saw in the Anthem trailer when it came out, the gameplay trailer, all of that stuff that you saw was a scripted series of events. The fight between the wolves and the big ape-looking giant lizard monster thing, all of that stuff was scripted events. They probably filmed that thing probably about like 50 times to get the perfect timing on everything. So, and that's why you don't have that happening in the world. You don't have wolves taking on what I can't remember. It starts with G. The giant monster thing. You don't have wolves taking, because like in the video he picks up a wolf and he smashes it to the ground and throws one off a cliff. It's like you don't have that happen in the game. Like it just doesn't happen. That event was totally scripted for the trailer to show off the trailer, and that was it. Like, I would be very surprised if that was even in the game, like as a potential thing. I think that was just a purely like 100% scripted event.
So, yeah, and then Kim asks, following up here, isn't it lying when you show one product and then you don't get that product? Yes and no. I mean, if you're talking about a trailer, I mean, we had this with Star Wars Rogue One, right? They had so much in the original trailer for that wound up getting cut and rewritten and then refilmed, and then so there's some iconic scenes from the trailer of that movie that
didn't even make it into the movie. Right. And that I think that was true for another big. I think it was the Suicide Squad. I think something in there was in the trailer that wasn't in the actual movie. I think there was a scene there too, but it's not uncommon.
It depends if you're like, there's false advertising, which is, I believe, a crime in most places, but there's probably a very distinct legal definition for that. Whereas putting a trailer out that doesn't fully represent what the game is going to look like or what's included in it, I'm not sure what the legal nuances would be there. But you could argue that at the time they made this trailer, they were intending to have all this in the game, and then it just didn't work. I mean, and I get that. You go watch the early trailers for our Fallout mod. They look, it's very different than what the final product ended up being. So I mean,
well, not really. I mean, the quest that we were showcasing played out the same. It's just we edited the quest so that first of all, there's dialogue choices, right?
Yeah.
But we edited it to become more like a story trailer than an actual here's what's actually in the game. Later on, Thuggy, who helped us with finishing the project up, Thuggy put out some a gameplay teaser, but it was straight gameplay. It was like an hour of him actually doing the quest. And the quest doesn't roll that fast that we put into the trailer footage. It just doesn't roll that fast, and it doesn't have the camera angles, unless you're actually using the console commands to actually create the camera angles that we were using. You don't just get those in the conversations. You can do that. You can script cutscenes, but it's really, really hard to in Fallout. Yeah. I mean, not even Bethesda does it a lot. So
anyway, if you want to continue this conversation, I would recommend coming to the Discord, striking up the conversation there. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about there, but we've got to move on. We've got our other 2 topics we've got to get to here. I do like it when stuff comes up on the fly from chat, though. That's really great. So we saw Alita Battle Angel last night, and going to talk about it a bit now. Spoiler-free review here, so don't worry about it. We're not going to ruin anything for you if you haven't seen the movie yet. So,
or I love this. I have to point this out. Each time I really do. I'm forced to. Yeah, no spoilers for a product, for a story that's been out for like 20 years.
Yes, but the movie is new. So yes, it's based on a manga, and there was an anime series as well, was there not?
I'm pretty sure.
Anyway, so Alita Battle Angel, story of an awesome little android girl. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was not familiar with the source material at all. Haven't read the manga, really. Nothing like that, but really enjoyed the movie. It was quite a... Okay, so you had James Cameron involved, and it is... He as per usual, like, he built a fantastic world for this movie to take place in. Like, it just seemed really real.
It was even directed by Rodriguez.
Rodriguez as well. So...
He was pretty good.
Lots of big names behind this production, yeah.
Yeah.
And
like I would take my younger siblings to go watch the Spy Kids movie, and I was always like really impressed with his cinematography and the way that he was able to do that stuff. So yeah, I was fairly impressed. It was.
Well, that seems to be the general consensus. People in chat right now. People in chat right now are saying they really liked it, those who have seen it. There is a big discrepancy between the user scores and the critic scores on sites like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. It's becoming less and less surprising when that happens for some reason, but yeah, the user scores are really high for it. People are saying, like, really, really enjoyed this, and the critic scores are kind of average. So they're not saying it's bad, but it's... well, some of them are saying it's bad, but it sort of averages out to average. But yeah, the user scores are really high. So yeah, it's a different kind of movie. Like, it doesn't spend a ton of time exploring the lore of the world. Like, sometimes you'll have a movie like this that takes place in an alternate reality or whatever, completely different world. They'll spend half the movie building up the origin story or the diving into the lore of the world. This one doesn't do that. It's kind of just, here it is, here's what happened, boom, moving on to the next thing. So they just touch on one point, move on. And so at a few points it felt like it was moving too fast, but that's not, that's a very minor complaint on my part, because I liked that they kind of just threw you in and jumped right into the story. And
yeah, I hate it when there's, and this happens a lot, where some movie director takes over a story or a book or an anime or something like that, and they end up trying to explain everything. It's like it's like how many more times do I have to sit through a bloody retelling of Bruce's origin story for Batman? It's like, first of all, I knew it in the first movie. I knew it from the comic books, and I can understand them putting it in one of the reboots. But the fact of the matter is, I think it's been retold like it's been retold constantly. It's even when they go and they do when they do the retelling of I can't remember what movie it was, but they did a retelling with all the characters in it. And guess which one of the origin stories they redid again. And it's not even a complex one. Like, Spider-Man has been redone to death multiple times over, but at least they've played with that origin story a few times, and it's been a little bit different in scenarios here and scenarios there, and sometimes he caught him in the act, and sometimes he stopped him post, and all this stuff, and It's fine. But Batman, it's the same bloody 10 seconds of the origin story, and it's never changed.
It's funny.
There's no difference in it. It's always opera, theater, Bruce doesn't want to be there, leaves. Oh, spoiler alert for the biggest,
everybody knows this is not a spoiler at this point.
And it's just like, good Lord.
Yeah.
I'm really happy when a director takes the story and they make some assumptions that you know what's going on.
Yeah.
You put it out there.
And even if you don't know what's going on, like I had no idea what was going on when I went into this movie. They throw you in, and then you get bits of Alita's backstory throughout the movie. And I think that works really well. And I mean, a lot of the crux of the movie was her trying to figure out who she was, because she had complete amnesia. And
when your brain sits in a jar for like 300 years, it's surprising how much information you lose.
But yeah, so really, like quite well done. Even though there were times when I felt the storytelling was a little bit thin, but the sheer fun.
Yeah, there was one part in it where I was kind of like, they could have done a way better job of explaining that.
Yeah,
like I was genuinely like, well, that's a little disappointing. They could have done a better job. It's like, come on, guys, it's not.
There was the occasional line that was really cringeworthy, but those are minor complaints. Like the overall sheer fun of the movie and the overwhelming design of the world like really drew me in, and it was just super fantastic. The action was really good. The characters were a lot of fun.
Now, we are speaking about this for a particular reason, and it's actually tied into Cyberpunk in general. And that is that overall, Cyberpunk is starting to become more of a trending style and topic. And that this is positively going to affect games like Cyberpunk 2077. As Cyberpunk 2077 will impact down the road, I think will end up making making this movie more popular at its outset, as will a lot of these other products that are coming out. A lot of these other stories, we're going to start seeing more and more Cyberpunk related stuff, more cyborg and that kind of a thing, because it's becoming more and more popularized. And that's really why we're talking about this today. It's why we went to see the movie last night, is because overall, Cyberpunk in general is becoming a more recognized household kind of concept. And it's interesting to note that we always have you always have this kind of it's this premise where before certain technological jumps, the public as a whole tends to connect with a particular something. And it's very similar, like during the space race, during the moon race, for example. There was this sudden, the general popularity went from, this was in Toy Story. This was the first kind of thing for Toy Story. Not first thing. Was it the first thing? Was it?
I think the second movie
remember.
they really they drove that home.
So the second movie they drove that home. So it's this aspect and it's this concept that people went from being infatuated with the Old West to loving the rockets and the sci-fi and that happened literally overnight for that generation, and that it was the moon race that kind of did it. And this is pretty similar to what we have, I feel what we're starting to have with Cyberpunk is the population as a whole is starting to become more and more interested in this stuff really quickly, when we're getting closer and closer to being able to do amazing things with prosthetics. And the level of prosthetic technology from now versus 10 years ago has made a jump that the last 50 years before, 100 years before that, took 100 years to make that same level of jump in regards of progress. Mm-hmm. And in the last 10 years, we've had this, this amazing progressional jump. And within another few years, I suspect that we're going to be seriously, in our lifetime, in our lifetime, I've been saying this for a while now. I predict that we will eventually get to a point where it's your brain in a jar, and or your brain inside a cyborg, and that's how you're living your life. Eventually, that will become preferable for a whole number of reasons. That if you really want to know and you want to, nerd out about this stuff, join our Discord and find me on there. But overall, it's that and AI. It's like I have I do a lot of work with AI related stuff, and it's a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time. Like really go in depth, really talk about the reasons why what people think about AI is not necessarily what AI is. First of all, there's VI and there's AI, and the people confuse those two things all the time. VI is not AI. AI is not VI. A VI can look like an AI to in a wrong perspective, and an AI can act like a VI. I mean, a human can act like a VI. So it's really kind of a it's really interesting. But overall, it's like this general push towards this. We're starting to see this more and more and more. More things are connecting in with this. It's slowly starting to grow, and I think Alita is definitely has moved this forward. Unlike we didn't get that really from Ghost in the Shell, but we got it. I think with Alita, I think it's done a lot better. And then with the overall story from Cyberpunk, I think we're gonna see another jump in this again, and I think this will really help. So this is really interesting. More so because we're moving in a direction now that's really cool, and I think we're going to be able to see this going forward. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited to see how this goes.
Well,
moving forward,
we all know your dream of uploading your consciousness into a starship orbiting the Earth.
Yes. Because how else will we get the human race to improve itself if they don't have a wonderful taskmaster looking over them with a giant missile launcher pointed at their face?
Me, I kind of like being a meatbag. We'll see. Well, we can debate the crap out of that on the Discord, though. All right, so fun movie though. Like, just really liked it. And moving on to more fun stuff, The Outer Worlds has, of course, just wrapped up their entire month of coverage on Game Informer. Who had all kinds of exclusive interviews and articles and information about the game. So they just dropped one. When did this come out? February 27th. So just a couple days ago. I believe this is going to be their last one. But it was an...
I'm expecting one more thing.
Right.
But yeah, they basically went to the head. They had this really, really great interview with the head of the company.
The CEO of Obsidian, Fergus Urquhart, talking about the acquisition of Obsidian by Microsoft and also the future of the Outer Worlds and he also went into some of the development of how the idea came about in the first place, which was really interesting. When they knew they wanted to make a game, they wanted to make a new IP. They kind of went through a bunch of different ideas of, should we do post-apocalyptic? Well, we don't want to just remake Fallout. We don't want to just do another sort of generic sci-fi thing that could be hit or miss. Anyway, they ended up with an original pitch that was actually, this game is Fallout meets Firefly, which does, I mean, I can definitely see it. I think we've made a lot of those same comparisons, comparing it to Fallout, comparing it to Firefly, comparing it to, what's that other game? BioShock, and also little bit of Cyberpunk, also some comparisons to Borderlands. So lots of different influences on these games. But Fallout meets Firefly, I thought that's fantastic. That's a fantastic way of putting it, and that they actually pitched it like that was absolutely great. And they have a lot of hope for the future of this franchise. He wasn't able to directly comment about who owns the Outer Worlds IP. Whether it's owned by Obsidian or whether those rights have transferred to Microsoft at this point. He wasn't able to comment on that, but overall the entire thing was very hopeful that this acquisition by Microsoft has been good for them, and they're making the games they want to make, and that's what we want to see, especially in this day and age, with what everything that's going on with certain corporations that we've talked about far too much, and necessarily so. But there's certain game companies that just evoke gut reaction of ugh right now.
Yeah.
We want to see these developers being given the opportunity to make the games they want to make. We want the people who are passionate about making games to be in control of what those games are.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that Kim just pointed out here as well is that during the interview that he basically did confirm that they're already working on a sequel. They're not like working on a sequel. They're still clearly working on finishing the current game. But they have a preliminary staff, and we've said before this is going to be like some of your artists, some of your story writers that like once they're done, like you get done with a generalized project pretty early on for what your role is, and then you move on to working on other stuff.
And that was confirmed in an earlier interview too, that they have ideas written down.
Yeah, and that they're probably working on that because they're seeing that this is trending towards being a really, really good release, and I think this is definitely true. Like for the most part, they're moving in a great direction right now, and that the chances of them being able to move into a position where they can do this is super awesome. And I mean, I can't wait to see what they have in their sleeve for the next game already, because I can tell that they've really got something good. Really need it to be third person, but they're moving in that general direction, and I'm really excited for it overall. And so overall, there's some people who don't like the CEO because of certain things that have happened in the past, and for that, I think I mentioned it before. It's like let that be for now. They're like, especially with these last few interviews, you get a real good feel for how they are, what kind of people they are, and how they're really trying. Nobody's perfect, but these guys are really trying hard to make a really, really good game, to make a really, really good universe. And moving forward, they're not going to... I really don't think that they're going to be, distracted now having the funding of Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world. It's like, look, they're able to do some pretty amazing stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that they will continue to be able to do some amazing stuff.
And there was some more interesting, actually Kim's comment here just reminded me of this. There were some more interesting things hinted at in this interview that you mentioned before we started the podcast as well. They have 3 development teams.
So they've got one team that's their biggest team is finishing up the Outer Worlds. They have another team that's finishing up work on Pillars. They just added a turn-based thing to it, and they're adding some other, they're finalizing some last content for that. And then they have another team that's working on a new project. And that new project is obviously going to be what Microsoft is going to be the first Microsoft-related launch title. So that's what they're working on right now. I suspect strongly that it's up in the air as to what exactly it is. I think that they're probably, like I said before, I think they're going to shift their focus from one of 2 or 3 possible things to probably, if the Outer Worlds does bonkers numbers, is a smash hit for 2019, absolutely dominates, and if Cyberpunk isn't released this year, then there's a very good chance that they could even nab that that number 1 game of the year. Hopefully keep it out of the hands of Atlas. or Apex, sorry, because that would just be horrendous if I
was going to say Atlas. There's no way Atlas is in the running for that.
No, to imagine a battle royale game getting Game of the Year is just kind of makes me feel sick. But overall, it's like if they can nab that spot and they become like the game of 2019, then they're for sure going to move immediately into working on a sequel.
For sure.
Because a sequel is going to take 3 years for them to put out.
They're going to have stiff competition though, if Cyberpunk comes out this year, they're going to have very stiff competition for that Game of the Year spot. But it's, don't think there's any question it's going to do well. It's going to do very well. The hype for it is off the charts, and considering it just kind of came out of nowhere, it's fantastic to see, and it's fantastic to see hype for a game that looks like it truly deserves it from people who are big names in the industry who have sort of proven track records of putting out quality products. So that is all really good to see. But speaking of things coming out of nowhere, we're just going to end with kind of a fun story here. So I meant to mention this earlier, but we'll just end off with it. So we all know how Apex Legends kind of just came out of nowhere. There was no hype train for it. There was no marketing campaign for it. It was just kind of Renegade said, "Yo, we've got a game coming out like tomorrow. Here it is," and it's been a smash hit. But the map for the game was leaked on Reddit apparently about 11 months ago, so close to a year now. The actual map, the Battle Royale map, was leaked on Reddit in a post called "Alleged Minimap for Rumored Titanfall Battle Royale Game." This got no press at all. It was
no traction whatsoever.
No, people either thought it was fake or they just didn't care. And
they're like, "Ooh, a battle royale game from wow."
Well, I think this.
Well, I'm not interested in that. That's what it was, and I think that's why. Look, I alluded to it a little while ago. I'll say it a little bit more directly now, because I don't think I'm ever going to be able to prove this. I tried getting some answers from some of the people that I think were involved with this, and their lips are sealed. This whole idea that EA wasn't involved, that this idea of like, hey, we're just going to spring the game and let people just try it because, we're not going to, we just want to be spontaneous. That's all a lie. It was absolutely planned. EA was up to their neck in planning this, in getting this out there. When the devs came out and said, "Oh yeah, EA had very little to do with this," that's BS as well. The game is good. Like, clearly, people enjoy playing the game. But the concept that I hear so many people say, "Oh, I'm only playing it because EA didn't have a hand in it." That's, like, I hate being the conspiratorial guy, but that's what they want you to think. Like, EA has figured out that the more they can be visually away from the product, the better the games do. So from now on, going forward, for all of their future releases, EA is going to have this thing where it's like, oh yeah, well, we just kind of let them do what they were going to do, and it was their idea to create loot boxes. Really? Really? It was their idea to create loot boxes? Come on, EA. We're not... I would say we're not that stupid, but clearly that's not the case in a lot of cases. A lot of people bit into this story and decided that, oh yeah, this is everything that EA is telling me is completely true. That, they were all like, hey, don't do loot boxes, let's find an easier and a friendlier way to do microtransactions. Oh, you guys really want to do loot boxes? Okay, well, we're the good EA, so we're just going to let you developers make the choice of what you want to do. Hey, we have a new strategy for announcing this game. We're just going to drop this out of nowhere, and we're going to announce it on Sunday and launch it on Monday. and this way we'll cut out all that negative press, all that negative feedback, and we'll just let people get right into the game. Again, if you think that this wasn't planned, I'm sorry, but that's just not that's not the way any corporation works. You think a multi-million-dollar project is not going to have people that analyze the crap out of stuff? I analyze the ever-living crap out of everything for the contracts that I work for. It's like we spend years on this stuff sometimes, and the fact that they're like, oh yeah, it was totally like spontaneous off the cuff. Like, no, it wasn't. It was always pre-planned. Don't fall for this stuff from EA. Good game or not, it's fine. You want to play it, play it. It's a really cool game. The way that they do the ping system, brilliant. I wish everybody would have done this. Absolutely brilliant. But by no means, don't let EA pull the wool over your eye. When they say they had zero hand in this, it's BS right from the cow. Absolutely farm fresh, grade A level BS. There is no way that they would let a multi-million-dollar project like this go off without any lawyers, any analysts, any PR people sitting back and making a dedicated attempt at figuring out what exactly the best thing to do to get this thing into the hands of as many people as they possibly can. And the way that a lot of, like, I mean, I can't blame people. I can't blame the average gamer for falling for tricks like this, because, I mean, this stuff is designed to make you fall in love with this stuff. It's designed, it's created. But the way that so many YouTubers and reviewers just are gobbling this up, they promised that EA didn't have a hand in it. And you believe them? Like, seriously? Again, average gamer, I mean, this stuff is designed to hook you in. It's designed to, they have a team of people who spend their entire life learning exactly how to make you enjoy a product. That's what it is. But there's, the reviewers out there, the people who should know that this was entirely a new marketing ploy to see if they could get people to bite down on this, that should have figured it out by now and haven't, is shocking. It's more than just shocking. It's absolutely like brain twisting to how I can look at this. Now again, I can't. The people that I'm pretty sure were involved in this, one of the analysts, a couple of the PR people that I'm nearly like, it's in their best interest to never ever let the truth of this ever get out. It's not that they're hiding it. They're never going to talk about it. They're not going to talk about it until they're retired and write a book or something. How I fooled an entire generation of people to openly embrace loot boxes at the point where it was becoming illegal in every country. And you bet your butt that they will have defenders that will come forward and say, hey, look, I'm okay with loot boxes as long as the game is good. You bet your butt they're going to say that. You bet your bottom's dollar that they're going to set this up as a way to defend loot boxes in AAA gaming. Loot boxes in free-to-play phone games, I get that, right? That's always been there. But the fact that we're letting this get reinforced into the gaming industry now, and that, again, I'm not saying that the fans are wrong about this. Fans can, if they get enjoyment out of something, that's fine. But it's the people who were, 3 months ago saying, I will never ever buy a loot box ever, especially from EA. They're garbage. They're horrible people. They need to be punished because of the shady stuff that they've done. All the studios that they've closed down. And then 3 days into Apex being out, they've spent $400 on Anthem. Or not on Anthem, on Apex Legends. It's just you have no gumption. And again, it's just you're lying to your community. I refuse to buy loot boxes. Unless, of course, EA puts out a really good game, in which case I'm going to shovel $400 down their throats in 3 days. I mean, come on. It's insulting to see people fall for this. And that's all I'm getting at. I mean, I understand that the game is good. That's fine. It's good. It's great. It's a good game. The way that they did the ping system, brilliant. And if Fortnite wants to take their place back, they need to introduce this ASAP. Because not only is it a good idea for Fortnite, it's they could improve upon it. Tomorrow they could, or not tomorrow, but the next big patch, next season thing, they could have voices for all of the characters, or they could have it so that you can choose the voice that you want with any of the characters. It's that's a pretty brilliant idea. And it certainly has improved the generalized look of quick play mobile, or not mobile, multiplayer titles. I really like this aspect. It's not the first time this idea was floated. I know this idea was floated in the past. I mentioned it a little while ago. But back then it was no, I don't see the point in that. It's whatever. But in this particular case, it's people, don't be blind to this. When EA, the biggest, most the largest liars in the entire industry, some of the worst people in gaming, period, won awards for being the worst company in America time and again. They tell you, oh, we didn't have anything to do with this, and people line up to believe them. It's come on, guys. Really? You're believing them? No questions asked. That's the biggest insult. So many of these people, no questions asked. Not even, is this true? Not even any of that. I found people that were giving, in the industry, connected to this situation, who were giving large, knowing nods about this. And I'm not even that close. I'm close with a fair number of people within EA, but not in, not as close as some people. If enter big YouTuber name here, if they wanted to get to the bottom of this, they could do it by tomorrow. They could probably even do some investigative journalism and get a real answer to this question. And again, would it hurt Apex? Probably not, because it's a game that everybody's lining up to play. It's a good experience. So no, they wouldn't. And why would they?
One of these days, you'll tell us how you really feel about this stuff, Side.
Yeah, one day I'll tell you how I really feel about it.
One of these days, you'll have a giant laser cannon aimed at every capital city on Earth, though. So maybe we don't want to hear how you really feel at that point. But all right, everybody. This has been the Augmented Reality Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate the great conversation in the chat. And thank you especially to our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters, for everyone who asked questions and threw comments and had great discussion today. We really appreciate the support. Hey, don't forget to slam that like button and the subscribe button before you leave, just so that you can be alerted. Well, actually, you'll have to hit that notification bell as well if you want to be alerted when we go live and when we post no content. I hear it sometimes works even. So, yeah, you might want to do that. So, but definitely subscribe to catch all of our content that goes live. And if you're listening after the fact on one of the audio platforms, we thank you for your support as well. It does take us a couple of days to get the podcast up to the audio platform. So if you want the latest info sooner, we welcome you to join us on the Triple S League YouTube channel every Tuesday and Friday at noon Pacific time and 3 p.m. Eastern time for the live show. And there you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. Also join our Discord. Lots of awesome discussion happening there. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for the game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Asheninity. On behalf of Cyberpunk, thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you next week.